This is Radio Caravan, the world news read by Shabnam Modgil. The most powerful weapon to ever be used against other humans was detonated by the United States and Japan 75 years ago. On the 6th of August in 1945, a B-29 bomber, famously known as the Enola Gay, dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima, marking the first of two times the bomb has ever been used in warfare. The death toll itself was mind-boggling. As many as 140,000 people ultimately died from the blast, but not all perished immediately. The residual health issues caused by intensive radioactive fallout claimed thousands of lives in the months and years afterwards as well. Hiroshima today marked the 75th anniversary of the world's first atomic bombing in a scaled-down ceremony due to the coronavirus. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe attended the ceremony as usual, but the number of foreign visitors was scaled down due to the outbreak. Survivors of the world's first atomic bombing gathered in diminished numbers near an iconic blasted dome today to mark the attack's 75th anniversary, many of them urging the world and their own government to do more to ban nuclear weapons. Lebanon mourned today the victims of the most powerful blast to hit a country that has already been struck down by an economic crisis as rescuers search for those missing since the explosion flattened Beirut port and devastated the city. French President Emmanuel Macron, making the first visit by a foreign leader since Tuesday's blast, which killed at least 145 people and injured 5,000, arrived in Beirut today along with the specialist rescue personnel and equipment. The aftermath of the massive explosion in the Lebanese capital of Beirut shows a shattered city covered in dust and debris. The blast sent a mushroom cloud into the sky, and massive explosions that rocked the city of Beirut were fueled by a 2,750-ton shipment of ammonium nitrate that had been stored in the port since 2013. An expert said back in 2014 that Lebanese authorities had a floating bomb on their hands. A huge rescue operation and an international aid effort got underway less than 24 hours after much of Beirut was buried by rubble and choked by smoke in this colossal explosion. And countries dispatched emergency medical aid, pop-up field hospitals, rescue experts and tracking dogs to Lebanon as the world reacted to the vast explosion that devastated Beirut. Iraq announced it will create an inventory of all hazardous materials at ports and airports after the ignition of ammonium nitrate fertilizer at a portside warehouse leveled swaths of Beirut. And the Pentagon distancing itself from President Trump's claims about the Beirut blast. Less than 24 hours after President Trump said some great generals told him they thought that the massive explosion in Beirut was an attack involving a bomb of some kind, Defense Secretary Mark Esper seemed less than convinced by that explanation. A pandemic of the coronavirus has now killed more than 707,000 people worldwide. Over 18.7 million people across the globe have been diagnosed with COVID-19. The United States, the worst affected, with more than 4.8 million diagnosed cases and at least 158,256 deaths. Latin America surpassed Europe to become the region with the highest coronavirus death toll worldwide. And while Europe tightened virus restrictions to face the threat of a second wave of COVID-19, President Trump found himself in the crosshairs of Facebook and Twitter because of a video in which he claims children are almost immune to the new coronavirus. U.S. testing for the coronavirus is dropping even as infections remain high and the death toll rises by more than 1,000 a day. Tennessee Republicans will cast their ballots today in a bitter Senate primary race that will test President Trump's influence and as the two leading candidates fight over who is most qualified to pursue conservative goals. Citing health concerns due to the coronavirus pandemic, former Vice President Joe Biden will not be accepting the Democratic Party's presidential nomination in Wisconsin this month. And the former vice president could be down to two contenders in his search for a running mate. A new report from Axios details how his confidants believe he has narrowed his list down to Senator Kamala Harris from California and former National Security Advisor Susan Rice. The Air Force's 421st Fighter Squadron recently became the first F-35A Joint Strike Fighter unit to go on alert status. The alert status exercises took place at Al Dhafra Air Base in the United Arab Emirates. And the United States will submit a UN Security Council resolution next week to extend an arms embargo on Iran despite opposition from Russia and China. Egypt said that it has decided to withdraw from the latest round of tripartite negotiations with Ethiopia over its multi-billion-dollar dam on the Blue Nile for internal consultations after Addis Ababa proposed a new draft of filling guidelines. And seasonal torrential rains have wreaked havoc on houses and infrastructure across Sudan, affecting more than 50,000 people. More than 1,300 people were killed in the first half of this year by armed groups in the Democratic Republic of Congo, 3 times more than in the same period last year, according to a report published today by the United Nations. And Italy's defense ministry said it would strengthen cooperation with Libya, citing a willingness for improved relations with the war-torn country's UN-recognized government. Germany will require people arriving from countries deemed high risk, such as the United States, to take coronavirus tests starting this weekend, as the country recorded its highest daily tally of new infections in 3 months. You're listening to the World News on Radio Caravan. And China has sentenced a 3rd Canadian citizen to death on drug charges amid a steep decline in relations between the two countries. China repeated that it would take measures if Washington didn't renew visas for Chinese journalists working in the U.S. amid questions over whether it will make a tit-for-tat move against American reporters in Hong Kong. China threatened today to take countermeasures over a trip to Taiwan by U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services Alex Azar, as the Chinese claimed island geared up for its highest-level U.S. official visit in 4 decades. And the visit, which begins this Sunday, adds to tensions between Beijing and Washington over everything from trade and human rights to the coronavirus pandemic. North Korea is quarantining thousands of people and shipping food and other aid to a southern city locked down over coronavirus worries, as the country's response to a suspected case reinforces doubt about its long-standing claim to be virus-free. And Thailand's powerful army chief today told cadets that the hatred of the nation plaguing the country was a bigger threat than the coronavirus as a nascent pro-democracy movement grows bolder. Even before the administration could act on intelligence reports, the Nepal government has begun construction of a helipad at a disputed location on the Indo-Nepal border along West Champaran district of Bihar. And the live telecast of the Ram Temple event in Ayodhya yesterday was widely watched across the world. It was broadcast by television stations in the United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, Australia, Indonesia, Thailand, Nepal, and several other countries. Deaths from COVID-19 in India have crossed the 40,000 mark, the 5th highest in the world, even as the country recorded its biggest single-day surge in fatalities at 918 yesterday, with the count crossing 900 for the first time. India saw a single-day increase of 56,282 cases, taking the country's COVID-19 tally to become the 7th straight day of over 50,000 new COVID-19 cases. And yesterday, the active cases of coronavirus disease in Delhi dropped below the 10,000 mark for the first time in over 2 months, with just 11 deaths due to the disease. And city malls that were reopened yesterday in Navi Mumbai after 4 months will remain closed again from today till the next order. A day after heavy showers pounded Mumbai and neighboring areas, the rain intensity reduced this morning and water has receded in some flooded areas. The state government sounded a flood alert for Kolhapur district as heavy rains battered western Maharashtra during the past 48 hours. The Indian Coastal Guard authorities have rescued 16 fisher folks after their fishing boat Dev Sandesh was caught in choppy waters on the high Arabian Sea off the Arnala coast. And in a new development in the sensational gold smuggling case, the National Investigation Agency told a special court in Kochi that prime accused in the case, Swapna Suresh, had a strong connection with the Kerala's chief minister. India's Federal Investigative Agency will probe the death of Bollywood actor Sushant Singh Rajput now. And India has refused to consider any de-escalation in Ladakh until the disengagement process, withdrawal of Chinese intrusions is complete, as Indian negotiators push back against repeated demands to move troops back from forward areas. India hit out at China for making yet another attempt to raise the Kashmir issue at the UN Security Council, saying it firmly rejects Beijing's interference in the country's internal affairs. And the Turkish Foreign Ministry criticized India's decision to revoke Jammu and Kashmir's special status in August last year. The UN Security Council discussed the disputed Kashmir issue at Pakistan's request yesterday for the 3rd time. Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi, in an unusually sharp warning, asked Saudi Arabia-led Organization of Islamic Cooperation to stop dilly-dallying on the convening of a meeting of the Council of Foreign Ministers on Kashmir. And a Frontier Corps soldier was martyred while 2 others were critically injured in separate incidents of violence against Pakistan Army posts by terrorists and Afghan border police. Pakistan International Airlines will partially resume its flights to the United Kingdom from the 14th of this month with a hired plane. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all that I have in the news for you this morning on the 6th of August.